Hi everyone, Jennifer here, and I there's so much about so I live in Florida, and there's quite a bit of conversation about the classics and a classic curriculum being talked about here. A local college, our governor just appointed some people to turn a liberal arts college into a classics liberal art college, and I met a woman from Russia the other day who was talking about why her kid wanted to be in opera, why she wanted her child in opera, is because she believes in the classic curriculum. And then I was talking to someone else about schools for my son. He's interested in history, and they suggested a classics college in Maryland that has a classic curriculum. And every time this has come up, I've like my instinct is to recoil from it. It's not that I don't like classic literature, Western classics. I do. Who doesn't like, the stories of Greek gods and whatnot? It's just, and I've been trying to parse out why I'm having this visceral negative reaction to it. And it's because I don't view it as very humanistic, right? First, I went to college at the University of Hawaii at Manoa, and our literary canon, was a global canon. So we were reading the great works of China. We were reading the great works of Japan. We were reading the great works of Africa. Name the country. We were exposed to literature, the great works from that country. And the problem with a classical education is it's incredibly myopic, right? It classics refers to Europe. That's it. You don't get to read Dream of a Red Chamber. You don't get to read Journey to the West. You don't get to read Chinua Achebe. You don't get to read any of these great works. You just read the European ones. And because you're told these are the books worth reading, and they are worth reading, but you're not exposed to other books that are also worth reading from other parts of the world, it creates a very chauvinistic mindset that these are the great works. I've read the great works. No, if you have not read Dream of the Red Chamber or Journey to the West, you have not read the great works of the world. You've read the great works of one region. And I think that's the problem. There's a book by the late, great Edward Said. It's called Democratic Criticism of Humanism, or On Humanism, a Democratic Critique of Humanism. And the whole book is a critique of the Western canon, the classics, what we call the classics, as if the Western classics are the only classics in the world. And that's kind of the point he makes, is that when we teach a Western canon and call that canon the classics, we are hurting people. We are hurting every kid who goes through that curriculum, I totally believe, is hurt by it. Not because they're, and it's a weird thing to say, because these are classic works, they are really good works. But it creates a very myopic viewpoint. It also excludes so many people. And this is the point that Edward Said makes on his book on humanism, is that, if you take a child from Asia and you tell them that we're going to have you read the classic works of literature, and they don't include the classic works from their culture, and they don't see themselves in the works, that you're creating a bias and a chauvinism, and you're making them feel like their culture is not as good as Western culture. And it's simply, that's the harm, right? Is this chauvinism by excluding the great works of the world to focus only and solely on the great works of Europe, and then claim that those great works are the quote unquote classics of literature. It causes harm. It causes great harm. And I wouldn't want that for my child. I don't think my child would want that, because he's already read things like Journey to the West. He knows who Chinua Achebe is. He's a 17-year-old high school student. He has also read many of the classics as well. We don't exclude the classics, right? The classics are quote unquote classic for a reason. They're really great works. but they're not the only great works that people should be reading. And I do think globalizing our canon and eliminating the quote unquote classic education would do a great service to the world, because it would connect us in a way that the classics absolutely don't. The classics exclude people. They exclude the majority of the world. And that's not okay, because there's great literature and great philosophy everywhere in the world. But people who get classic education have no clue what they're missing. And they don't know that they're missing anything because they have been told by their teachers. And they have been exposed only to things that their teachers wanted them exposed to. And they think, oh, these are the classics. These are the books worth reading. Yeah, they're worth reading, but so is all this other literature in the world. Dreams of the Red Chamber is phenomenal. Journey to the West is phenomenal. The books in Africa, phenomenal. Right? So open up your reading list. Read Isabel Allende. Like, holy crap, her work is amazing. Right? So open up your literature, and oh my God, resist classical education. It sounds good, but it is incredibly harmful. So no to classical education. I don't have a problem with people reading these books and being exposed to them, but it should be in the context of a global literary traditions around the world. Right? Because Western literature is not the only canon. You could do an entire course on Chinese literature and storytelling, and it would be worthwhile. So globalize our stuff. Don't just understand when people are talking about classic education, they are talking about focusing exclusively on Western Europe, on European works, period. That's it. They are shutting themselves off to everything else. It is not a good education.